Alrighty, hi everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Portfolio Manager 101. We'll be getting started in just about 5 minutes here at 1 p.m. I just wanted to point out that we do have closed captioning available. It can be found on the lower left-hand side of your screen. It's a chat bubble with the CC in it. And once again, we'll be getting started in about 5 minutes here. Hi everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar, Portfolio Manager 101. We'll be getting started in just about 2 minutes here at 1 p.m. I just wanted to point out that we do have closed captioning available. It's on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. It's the chat bubble with the CC in it. Once again, we'll be getting started in just about 2 minutes here at 1 p.m. Alrighty, hi everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Portfolio Manager 101. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin here, I just wanted to run through a couple housekeeping items here. So there will be a Q&A session at the end of today's presentation, and you can submit questions for this Q&A session via the chat box to the host. And to access this chat box, you can hover your mouse over the bottom of the right-hand side of your screen and click that chat bubble icon. The presentation slides for today's session were sent to all registrants earlier today. If you registered for the webinar kind of last minute, no worries. The slides will be attached in a thank you email along with a link to the recording after today's session. And once again, we do have closed captioning available. It's on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. It's the chat bubble with the CC on it. That's it for me. I will pass things over to Mimi to get us started.
Great, thank you, Sophie. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Portfolio Manager 101. Let's see here. Pull these up there. Alrighty, and like Sophie said, we will be holding a Q&A at the end of today's session. So if you do have questions, please pop those in the chat. I will try to answer any questions that I can catch while I'm presenting, as long as they're relevant to the topic we are on. But if I don't get to it, don't worry, I will get to it at the end. So with that, we will get started here. Alrighty, so today we will hopefully demonstrate the core functionality of the Portfolio Manager tool. And the goal is you will learn the essential how-to information you need to get up and running with the tool so you can begin tracking your building's energy, water, and waste and materials performance. The learning objectives for today include how to navigate Portfolio Manager, how to add a single property and enter use details, how to enter energy, water, and waste and materials data. And then we'll go over a bit of a brief run through of how to generate reports and track progress using performance documents, charts, graphs, and the reporting feature within the tool. So Portfolio Manager is often used as a management tool that is just one part of a broader strategic plan to reduce consumption and costs. It can be used to do a whole host of things, but mainly it is used to compare, measure, and track consumption over time, to set baselines, set goals and targets, to generate metrics that may reveal underperforming properties, and then based on this whole building perspective, building managers can begin to make investment decisions about conservation and efficiency measures to then track the impact of these strategies within Portfolio Manager after they are implemented. And lastly, Portfolio Manager is free, it's online, and it is a secure resource backed up by free and regularly updated trainings documentation. Portfolio Manager also offers over 300 metrics to assess performance. For energy, there are metrics such as source and site energy, weather normalized energy, and greenhouse gas emissions and green power can also be tracked. You can also track indoor and outdoor water by type, as well as trash, recycling, and compost. Since these resources are limited, Portfolio Manager helps to allocate them strategically to get the greatest benefit from the projects you implement. And the marquee metric for energy within the Portfolio Manager tool is the 1 to 100 Energy Star score, which is available to certain property types. And if this score is 75 or higher, your property is eligible to apply for our voluntary Energy Star certification program. Since recognition is an important part of a good energy management strategy, we'll get to talking more about this in just a bit. So what do we mean when we say benchmarking? Benchmarking is the process of comparing use to gain valuable perspectives about building performance. And so Portfolio Manager offers several ways to compare your energy, water, and waste usage. For all three, the tool will establish a baseline comprised of 12 complete months of calendar data, which is a starting point against which to compare future consumption. So in other words, as the building operates, we compare newer data to the baseline period in order to understand how consumption and costs change over time. For energy, another way to benchmark in Portfolio Manager is to compare a property's baseline to the median energy use of a national sample of similar buildings. And this will mostly come from a data set called CBEX, which stands for the Commercial Building Energy Consumption Survey. Okay, so on this slide here, you can see the 1 to 100 Energy Star score, and it's essentially the marquee metric because it is one simple number that can be understood by all stakeholders. Now on this slide, you'll see property types that are available to receive the 1 to 100 Energy Star score. And building types with an asterisk on this slide can receive an Energy Star score, but are not yet eligible to apply for certification. These property types are eligible for the score because there is a robust reference data set for these space types where the EPA has found meaningful relationships between the space types and how they use energy. So when you enter a property into Portfolio Manager as one of these types, your actual data can be compared to the reference data set to then generate the Energy Star score. If you don't see a particular space type on this list, it means that the Energy Star score for that type is not yet available. And so common examples of this will include museums, libraries, police stations, and convention centers as well. However, do keep in mind that while there is no score for these properties, still be tracked within Portfolio Manager using the countless other metrics. And for more information about eligibility, I have a link that I will put in the chat for you all. Okay. So moving on from there, it's not uncommon for properties to have multiple property types within it. And a multi-use property can still receive the Energy Star score and be eligible for certification. However, it must meet two conditions. The first condition, 75% of the property's gross floor area must be comprised of property types that are eligible for an Energy Star score. And number two, more than 50% of the gross floor area must be comprised of one eligible property type. So we'll go through some examples that you can see on the screen here. In building, you can 60% office and 40% a warehouse. So this space type meets criteria number one because both the office and the warehouse are eligible space types. So 75% of the gross floor area is made up of eligible space types. Number two, more than 50% of the gross floor area must be made up of one eligible space type, and that is met by the office being at 60% of the gross floor area. Now, conversely, we can look at building number two. We have the office again at 60% and the laboratory at 40%. Now, unfortunately, because labs are not an eligible property type, this fails to meet criteria number one, which states that 75% of the property's gross floor area must be comprised of eligible property types. Moving along, we can see building number three. We have the hotel at 60%. We have dry cleaning at 15%, and we have office at 25%. Now, this does meet criteria number one because we have both the hotel and the office being eligible property types, and that is over 75% of the gross floor area. And then it also meets criteria number two because we have the hotel as 60% of the gross floor area. Now, lastly, we can look at building number four, where we have the office at 40%, the warehouse at 40%, and a data center at 20%. Now, even though these are all eligible property types, this fails to meet criteria number two, which states that more than 50% of the gross floor area must be comprised of one eligible property type. And because all of the property types in this building are less than 50%, this does not meet our criteria. Okay, moving right along here. Energy Star Portfolio Manager has been adapted in partnership with Natural Resources Canada to include Canadian weather data, postal codes, both official languages, the metric system, and other Canadian data. If you are looking to get more information about benchmarking Canadian properties, I have some information for you here, which I will paste in the chat. And then I will also paste the contact information for Natural Resources Canada if you would direct any questions about Canadian properties their way. Perfect. Alrighty, moving right along here. Oh, a little too quick. Okay, so after that introduction, we are going to get into our objective, which is how to navigate Portfolio Manager. But before we get into the screen sharing portion of today's presentation, I'm going to go over the things you will need to get started in Portfolio Manager. So just to create a record in the tool, all you will need are the items listed under number 1 on this slide. So that includes the property's primary function, the name, address, postal code, the year built, and the gross floor area. From there, if you are interested in generating an Energy Star score or other Portfolio Manager metrics, you will need to enter in the property use details because these details are considered to be the drivers of energy use within your building. And they will also change according to the property type you are entering. So you'll see in just a moment, Portfolio Manager will prompt you according to the property type you select, because the drivers of energy use in something like an office building will differ from a retail building or a hotel, for instance. And then lastly, you will need consumption data for the resources you're interested in tracking. So to generate these metrics, you will need at least 12 months of data because all of the metrics in Portfolio Manager are annualized. So typically this will come from your utility bills. However, I know that most folks do not bill from the first of the month to the first of the month. So if you do get bills from the middle of the month to the middle of the month, for example, September 15th to October 15th, you will need to include a 13th month of data for Portfolio Manager to actually recognize that as a full calendar year. And I'll show you that once we're in the tool. Okay, let's see what else here. Portfolio Manager also offers a really helpful tips as you're moving along, and so you'll see those. And then the EPA Energy Star program has a whole slew of resources which we'll touch on briefly and are linked in this slide deck, which you have already received or you will receive. But the most handy one at this stage is the data collection wizard that will create a PDF or a Word document with all of the necessary information for your property type that you wish to enter into the tool. And so the goal of this is you can fill out this wizard, we'll create the PDF for you, and then you'll have all the information in one place as you sit down to create this record in Portfolio Manager. So I'm going to link this for you in the chat here. And we will move right along to our first objective, how to navigate Portfolio Manager. So the first place we're going to start is from this page here. And I will actually paste this link into the chat for you, and we'll start on this page together. Here we go. Alrighty, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. If you'd like to follow along at the link I just sent in the chat, please do. I will say that this webinar does assume that you already have a Portfolio Manager account, but if you do not have one, it is very quick and easy to get set up, but we won't be going through those steps today. Okay, one moment here. Okay, perfect. Sophie, can you confirm you can see my screen?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, great. So from here, we will get started by just pointing out a few things. So this page here provides a lot of the information we just touched on about benchmarking your building with Portfolio Manager. I'm going to scroll down a bit and it'll go through some things we touched on, like what is benchmarking, what is the Energy Star score, and a lot of other tips and reasons for why benchmarking is very helpful. So I highly recommend scrolling through here and reading through the information on this page. I also really recommend you spend some time in this website, as there are many other resources listed on this left-hand side over here, most notably under this training tab. So this training tab will have live online trainings, how-to guides, demo videos, and recorded webinars. And so if you're looking for more live trainings like the one this afternoon, you can check our calendar here for any upcoming webinars. And then you can also check out the supporting resources around there. We have a lot of information on here and a lot of repetitive information that will hopefully provide what you're looking for, especially when getting set up within the tool. Alrighty, so from the Benchmark Your Building with Portfolio Manager page, you will notice that over on the right-hand side is the Energy Star Portfolio Manager login screen. So from here, like I mentioned, if you need to create an account, you can click this Create Account button, and it will bring you to the page to create an account. Now, like I said, we will not be going through these steps today, but if you do need to make an account, it is very simple, and you will fill out these fields here. You'll fill out any information about your organization, and then you will click the button at the bottom that says Create My Account. Now I'm actually going to exit out of here and go back to the page we were just on. Now, for those of you with an account, we are going to enter in our username and password and click this blue Login button. Now let me zoom in here. Okay, so once you are logged in, you should be brought to your My Portfolio page. Now, this is like your home page within the tool, and this is where you will see all of your dashboard with all of your buildings that you have already benchmarked and added to your account. If you don't have any buildings, that's totally fine. It just means you haven't added any yet. But a few other things to note on this page here as well is the Manage Portfolio section on the lower left side of the screen. So there's lots of different things you can do within your account here, whether it's transferring ownership of a property, uploading or updating properties using Excel spreadsheets, downloading the entire portfolio to an Excel spreadsheet. You can also set goals and baselines and targets to help measure your progress. You can lastly add sample properties, or you can delete properties. Now, caution with the deleting, I really highly recommend staying away from this unless you absolutely need it, but it is there for you. Now, scrolling back to the top, we're going to go through a few of the navigational functionalities of the tool. So right off the bat, you'll notice this tabbed structure, which is pretty helpful when navigating between the portfolio level and the property level. So at the portfolio level, we have the My Portfolio tab. We also have the Sharing tab. Now, we're not going to talk too much about the sharing tab in today's session, but if you're interested in learning more, you can attend our Portfolio Manager 201 and 301 sessions, which will build on the knowledge that we learned today. So through this tab, you can share your property, share access to a property with other users. You can share with your utility or with a service product provider. You can also download your sharing report. And then if you do have any notifications, if you have recently been sharing any properties with anyone, that will pop up here. As you can see, looks like we have a few properties that have been shared with this trainings account. And so we can either accept, reject, or clear and cancel all sorts of things here. The next tab is the reporting tab, and we'll spend some time at the end of the presentation in this tab, but very briefly, this is where you can track the progress of the buildings within your portfolio. So you can generate all sorts of performance documents, as well as various reports and templates, whether they are Energy Star reports or whether they're reports or templates that you have created yourself. And this tab can be pretty helpful if you are looking to comply with local or state ordinances. A lot of the information that they require will be sent to this tab if they're working in partnership with Portfolio Manager, but otherwise it's just very helpful to be able to get an overview of what is going on with your buildings. The last tab here is the recognition tab. So this is where if you apply for, most notably, the voluntary Energy Star certification program, this is where you will see any updates on the status of your application. So as you can see here in this section, it will have status and then action. So being reviewed, it will tell you under review. If you have any applications that we have responded and have asked questions of you, then it will show questions for applicant and it will have an action for you to do whatever is necessary for that application. We also have a few other recognition programs like our design for the Energy Star, Design to Earn the Energy Star recognition program, if you have heard of that one. So again, all of this information can be found back on the energystar.gov hub website with all of the trainings materials and information. So again, just another plug to check that out. Alrighty, and lastly for navigation, I'll point your attention to the top right-hand side of the screen up here. There's lots of things up here, but most notably, we have the help section. So if you ever need help, or if you're ever confused about anything, or need to find those resources that I was just mentioning, you can click this help button, and it will bring you to this home page, which will provide basically an abridged version of the EnergyStar.gov website, which will provide all of our FAQs. It will also give you a link to the Portfolio Manager glossary. And then it will also provide over on the right-hand side all of these technical references, which can be very helpful for learning how Portfolio Manager calculates all of the metrics that are being used. Okay, so I'm going to go back here into the My Portfolio tab. Alrighty, so at this point, we will step into our second objective today, which is adding a property. So again, we are back on the My Portfolio tab, and up in this left-hand corner, you will see the Add a Property button in blue, and we are going to select that. Now from there, you will be brought to the Setup a Property, Let's Get Started page. So on this page, you will be designating the type of property, the number of buildings within your property, and your property's construction status. So to select the property type, you will select the drop-down arrow here, and there are over 85 different property types listed here. Now, again, some of them may not be eligible to receive the Energy Star score. However, they will be eligible to be assessed by the hundreds and hundreds of other metrics Portfolio Manager offers. So you will select what is most applicable to your property. We will go with a bank today. Then you will designate the number of buildings on your property, and the options are none, one, or more than one. Today we're going to say one. And then you will designate your property's construction status. So most of you will probably select existing. However, there are options for design if your property is in the conceptual pre-construction phase. And then there's of course a test property, which we will be using today, and we will be entering in data as if this property is in operation. Once you have filled that out, we will select this Get Started. Alrighty, so then you will be prompted to enter in the basic property information. So we will go in and fill that out. Okay, and about at the middle of the page, you will notice that there are a few terms that are highlighted blue. So these terms are specifically defined by Portfolio Manager. And if you are interested in learning about what that definition is, you can hover your mouse over any of these terms and it will provide you a brief definition. And then by clicking into it, you'll be brought to the Portfolio Manager glossary to then get the full definition. So since these terms can be pretty particular within the tool, it's helpful to read through and understand something like gross floor area, how it is calculated, how it should be measured, and what should be included and excluded in your total gross floor area. So back to here, any of these terms, like I said, can be hovered over and you'll receive the brief definition. And then off to the right-hand side, you'll see this temporary value. Now, we'll encounter more of these temporary values later down the line, but if you do need to enter in anything as a temporary value, you can definitely do that. However, if you are at some point looking to send this information either for the Energy Star certification program or for another reason, whether it's state or local benchmarking laws, you will need to go back in and enter in actual data. So again, if this is just your first time testing out the tool and you just want to see how everything works, definitely go in and enter this as temporary, but you will need to go back and edit that information when I'm going to deselect that for now and then scroll down through here. This standard IDs section is if you are complying with state or local governments with benchmarking laws. So if you are not doing that, you can ignore this section. And if you are doing that, then you will have been provided a standard ID to enter in here. And then the last box will change depending on your property type. So for today, it's asking if we have parking areas or drive-through bank services. So we'll definitely say yes to parking, and then we'll say we have a drive-through as well. Once you've completed that, you will select this blue button, Continue. Okay, so then on this page here, set up a property, how is it used? This is where you will enter in the use details associated with your property. So again, this is where the drivers of energy use are derived from, and all of the metrics in Portfolio Manager are derived from these details here. You'll also notice that over on the left-hand side, all of the details with a blue star are used to calculate the Energy Star score. So if you do not include any of those, then the Energy Star score will not be able to be calculated. So we will go ahead and fill these out. Okay, and then like I said here, you'll notice that there are a few other options here, whether it's the default values listed here. So Portfolio Manager will have default use detail values for each property type that are specific to each property type. So again, if you don't have the information right in front of you, you can use the default value, or all the way over on the right-hand side, you can put in a temporary value if necessary. Scrolling down here to our parking use, we will need to enter in the type of parking we have available. And the same thing goes for here. You can, of course, enter in temporary values. Once you've completed entering in those use details, you will then select Add a Property. Wonderful. So Portfolio Manager has this great system where when you've done something successful, it will give you a green banner at the top of the page. Now, if we ever do anything wrong, we will see a red banner, which it will then also provide steps to fix whatever was wrong initially. But at this point, we have successfully created our property, and now it is prompting us to add in our energy use information. So we will get to that in just a moment. Now, scrolling down here, I'm going to show you we are now in the property level, and you will see a new set of tabs for, again, organization and navigating the tool. So this first tab we are on is the Summary tab, and you will see here that it will eventually provide metric summary as well as metrics up in this top right-hand corner. And then scrolling down even more, there's a few other functionalities that I like to mention: the custom intensity metrics, the data quality checker, and then the sharing this property. Now, we won't go into these today, but I like to point them out for referencing when you're first getting to know the tool. Now, scrolling back to the top here, you can click into the Details tab, and this will give you some of the information we just entered. So over in the left-hand corner, you will see the basic information, and then over on the right-hand side, you will see the property uses and details. And then you can also select these gray arrows here to look at the information and the use details that you just entered in. Now, if you need to edit any of this information, over in the action column, you can select the drop-down arrow and you can edit the use details or you can delete the use entirely. I'm going to collapse that. And the same thing goes for adding another use type. You'll see in this top bar right here, you can select the drop-down arrow and you can add any other use type that might be associated with your property. So for those of you with large multi-use buildings with multiple different property types within it, this can be helpful if, for example, you only have the information for one property type within your building, and then gradually you're adding on the rest of the property types. This is where you can go to do that. And you will follow the steps that we just went through to add that new property type. And then moving right along here in the rest of the tabs, you will see we then have the energy, water, and waste tabs, which we will be going back to the energy tab in just a moment here. But this is where you will add your meters, enter your bills for any of the usage you would like to track. And then lastly, we have the goals and design tabs. There we go. So the goals tab is where you can set goals to progress towards an energy target. And once you have entered in your first year of data, you will then be able to set a baseline and then from there a target goal in whether it's energy savings or energy cost savings, whatever you're looking to track. You can do so from this tab here. And then lastly, the design tab. This is where you can design a property that will be energy efficient. And this will go a little bit more hand in hand with our Design to Earn the Energy Star recognition program. If you are interested in that, you'll spend a lot of time in this tab here. Alrighty. So at this point, we will step into our third learning objective, which is how to enter energy, water, and waste and materials data. So we will click into the Energy tab. I will scroll down just a bit here. And over on this left-hand side, I will point out that there are a few different ways to enter in bill data. Now, today we'll only be doing number one, which is the manual way. But there's also a way to enter in data using spreadsheets, and we call it either the simple spreadsheet or the complex spreadsheet. It basically means whether you're uploading information for one property or for multiple properties or multiple meters. And we go over how to do both of those in our Portfolio Manager 201 session. And then the fourth and fifth ways are seeing either if you can hire a service product provider to enter in your energy data for you every month, or seeing if your utility offers this service. So we actually have a really handy dandy FAQ, and then from there, a map that will list all of the utilities that will enter in your energy data directly to Portfolio Manager. So this map or this FAQ here will give you a good list of all the utilities by state, or you can go to this interactive map here, scrolling down, and enter in your zip code and then see what utilities are available near you. Or if your utility rather enters in data directly into the tool. I see Sophie put that in the chat. Thank you very much. So definitely check that out. It's really, really handy, especially if you're looking to enter in a backlog of energy data. Doing that manually would take quite a lot of time. Okay, here to our Portfolio Manager Energy tab, and we are going to get started. So over on the right-hand corner, you will see the Add a Meter button, and we're going to click that. Now from here, you will enter in the sources of your property's energy. So depending on whatever energy your building uses, you'll want to select that. We're going to keep it simple today with electric purchased from grid and natural gas meters. And then we'll scroll down to the bottom and select this Get Started. Now, you'll be brought to the About Your Meters for your properties page. And from here, you'll need to enter in the units, the date the meter became active, whether this source of energy is something that is delivered like fuel oil or diesel. And then you can also enter in custom meter ID names. And this can be really helpful if you have a bigger building or a property with lots of electric meters, and it can be helpful to keep track of them by giving them a name that is not just a number or something like that, but rather maybe associated with the room that it's in or the floor that it's on or something like that. So we will go through and enter in first the units. Now I recommend entering in the units that are on your utility bills so that when you enter in the energy data, it's a direct entry and that's pretty straightforward. And then the date the meter became active. Now, for most of you, it will probably not be last year. And if it is something, if your building is over 20 years old, over 10 years old, that's totally fine. You can enter in the actual start date of the meter. And then once we get to the next page of entering in the bill data, all you need is the most recent year of data for Portfolio Manager to calculate metrics for you. So if you do want to look into the backlog of energy data, and see how your building has been progressing over the years. You will need to enter that in eventually so you can see that. But for the tool to actually show you metrics, you only need the most recent year of data, or really just 1 year of data if you want to look at something from a couple years ago or whatever you have available. You just need the one complete calendar year. And then moving along here, if your meter is no longer active, you will deselect the in use and then just enter the date it became inactive. And then of course, if you do have delivery, you can enter that in here. Now, once we've entered in the information, we will select the create meters listed down here. Okay, so then we will need to select the meters to include in our metrics. So the metrics that I've been talking about, the metrics that Portfolio Manager generates, the Energy Star score, we'll need to tell Portfolio Manager which meters to use to actually calculate those numbers. So you'll most likely choose it accounts for the total energy, but if it doesn't account for the total energy, you'll need to provide an explanation as to what it actually accounts for. And then you will go down to the bottom corner and hit the Apply Selections button. Okay, so now we are at the point where we are going to enter in our actual bill data. So the first thing we will do is click to add an entry. And if you are manually doing this, it will auto-populate the dates for you based on the first date you enter. So then you can select this plus arrow, add another entry, and it will auto-populate the rest of those dates for you. Okay, and then you will enter in your usage. Okay, and once you've entered all of that in, you can also enter cost information. It is not required. I will repeat that. The cost information is not required. However, it can be very helpful to enter that in to then see any cost savings over time. So I like to urge people to enter that information in if you have it, but again, it is not required by Portfolio Manager at all whatsoever. And it is also not required to apply for Energy Star certification. It is just an extra option to assess your properties from the cost perspective. Oh, and lastly, the estimation column. This will be similar to the temporary values that we've seen earlier today. So if you do not have your bills right next to you when entering this information, you can enter in estimated values. However, again, if you are looking to apply for certification or submit this information anywhere, you will need to go back in and enter the actual and verified bill data. Once that is done, you will scroll to the bottom here and select Save Bills. And again, we get that green banner at the top, which is wonderful. And now we can go back to our main property page by just selecting the name of the property at the top here. Perfect. Alrighty. And now I'm going to go back to the My Portfolio page to show you what it will look like when you have all your meters set up and all the information available to see the metric summary and everything like that. Alrighty, so when you have, isn't this showing what we want it to? Pardon me, folks, one moment here. Hmm. All right, just one moment here, folks. Sorry about that. I'll try to show you. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So here's a perfect example of a property. Once you have entered in all of the bill data for your property, you will be able to then go back to the summary tab as we are here, and you will see this metric summary is now filled out with all of the metrics that have been generated by the information you have provided. So you will see whatever is displayed here as a default, but you can also top right hand corner by selecting this change metrics button. You can go through this whole list, which has several metrics here, depending on what you'd like to display. So from there, you will select 7 and then hit apply, and you'll be able to see those listed here for you. Now, scrolling to the top, we also have the one metric that will be displayed in the top right-hand corner. Now, by default, it will be that Energy Star score. However, you can also change this as well. So you can change it to any of the metrics listed here, whichever is most helpful for you. And then you'll just select this select metric, and it will be shown there. Okay, so at this point, we will step into our final objective, which is going over the charts and graphs in the reporting tab. So I'm going to click over to the reporting tab here, and we're going to walk through the process of filling out and generating one of the Energy Star performance documents that you will see in this right-hand corner. Now, one that is pretty common, especially if you are complying with local or state benchmarking laws, is the Statement of Energy Performance. So you can click into this PDF and it will bring you to this page here, which you will fill out which properties to include in this report, for what time frame, and then the context for which the report should be sent to. So first we will fill out the property. Then we will select the time frame, and we'll just do the baseline year. And then you can also select for which usage type. So you can select for either energy, water, or waste. And then you'll need to select the primary contact for the report, the property owner, and then the verifying professional. Once you have filled all of that out, you can then select this Generate and Download Report button. And it will generate this PDF, as you can see here, which you can scroll down and take a look at everything. It's only one page, this document, but it will provide this summary of the energy performance for whatever properties you have included. So it will give the property address, the owner, and contact information. It will provide the energy consumption, the energy use intensity, and then it will also provide this last section here for all of this information to be stamped and verified by a licensed professional. So this can be either professional engineer or a registered architect. And once they have signed off on this, we know that all of this information is accurate and verified. Alrighty, I'm going to click back to our reporting tab here. Now I'm going to click back into the reporting and show you a few other options of reports you can generate. Now, these right at the top here, the charts and graphs, you can click through these. There's lots of options here like total greenhouse gas emissions, energy cost intensity, water use intensity, the Energy Star score, source EUI. And so you can select any of these charts and it will bring you to this report here, which will provide a few figures of what is going on in your portfolio, and it will provide differences by group, by property type, and then also compared to the national median. So depending on the metric that you select for the report to display, it will show you the best graphics that can be pulled for that metric. You can also click into any of these here in the top right-hand corner, these 3 lines, and you can download them in various different formats. You can print them. You can also view them in full screen as well. I'm going to scroll back to the top here and click back to our tab. Alrighty, and then lastly, once you scroll down here about halfway down the page, you'll notice we have a few other tabs here. So the first one we are in is the Energy Star reports. Now, these are reports provided by the tool that you can also generate. So to be able to do so, you will go to the Action column, select the drop-down menu, and then you can generate a new report from here. Once it tells you with, again, the green banner that it is being generated, you can scroll down. And what I like to do actually is just hit this refresh, and it'll let you know that this report has now been generated. You'll also see that in the status column. then you can select the drop-down arrow again, and you can view the current report. Now, it looks like this report was only for one property, but you'll be able to get all the information and metrics specified within that report itself. And then once you've generated that report, you can scroll down here and you can download them in either an Excel or XML format. I'm going to close out here. And then the last two tabs here, just for your awareness, are the My Reports and Templates tab, which these will be reports and templates that you create yourself. We won't walk through those steps today, but if you are interested in learning how to do that, we do go through those steps in our next sessions, Portfolio Manager 201 and Portfolio Manager 301, that will be coming up later this month. And then we also have the data requests from others tab. So again, I've mentioned a few times, if you are complying with state or local benchmarking laws and they have sent you a data request through Portfolio Manager, this is where that will appear. Otherwise, this is where you can send data requests to certain people or respond to data requests from others as well. Alrighty, in our last few minutes here, I'm just going to promote a few other resources that can be pretty helpful when navigating this tool for the first time. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go back to our My Portfolio tab, and then I'm going to click into a property here, one that we're working in. Oh, not this one. There we go. And I'm just going to point out a few more things. So I mentioned it at the beginning. Once you are in one of your properties and on the summary level tab, you can scroll down to the bottom and you will see two boxes that I'm going to call your attention to. The data quality checker and then the sharing this property box. So the data quality checker can be very helpful to evaluate if there are any issues with the data included in your property. And so you can click into this box, check for possible errors. I won't go through the whole step here today, but you will enter in the time frame you would like the tool to check, and then you will run the checker. Once you do that, it will provide a list of possible issues, issues that definitely need to be fixed, and then other things to look out for as you continue benchmarking within Portfolio Manager. Now, once we go back, scroll down again. I will also point out the sharing this property tab. So once you have learned how to, or you are interested in sharing this property or your properties with other people, you can see any notifications or any sharing permissions that you already have set up in this box at the bottom of this screen. So you can see here this property has been shared with two accounts here. And if you would like to share it with any other accounts, you can also just click share from here. Instead of going to the sharing tab, this is just another option. Now I will scroll back to the top here and I'm going to click into our details tab and scroll down. Now, scrolling down in the Details tab, you'll see a few other boxes that we didn't mention today, but again, just helpful to point out. So one thing over on the left-hand side is just this unique identifiers and IDs. So this is where you'll find your Portfolio Manager ID, any standard IDs or custom IDs associated with your property. You'll also notice in this middle section here, the property use by GFA. This can be pretty helpful if you have a multi-use property with multiple property types within it. You'll be able to see the property use split up. And then you can also just see the property type that you've selected, and you can edit that from this box as well. Now, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can enter in over here on the left-hand side, you can enter in a service product provider. And this would be if you are looking to have another company enter in your energy data for you. You can add them directly into your Portfolio Manager account from this box here. And then these last two boxes are just helpful to know. Any notes you would like to keep about your property, you can add those here. Just make sure you save them. And then if you have any verification information or anything like that that you would like to add to your property, you can add that here as well. Scroll back to the top. And then the last thing I see on the energy tab. Now, once you have entered the metrics and bill data for your property, you will be able to see the meter summary over here on the left-hand side of how many meters are associated and which are included in the metrics. And then you'll also be able to get this chart here, and you'll be able to customize it depending on what you'd like to see. So it will show you the energy use by calendar month, and you can refresh that chart as needed to show what is going on with your most recent data. And then scrolling further down the page here, you will see the meters used in your metrics and the meters not used in the metrics. And if you do need to edit any of these meters, you can click right into the blue highlighted meter name. You can also select change meter selections if you need to change how the meters are used to compute the metrics. And then if you need to add any additional meters, you can also do that right here with the add a meter button. Okay, I think that's probably all for today. I will bring us back to the Benchmark Your Building with Portfolio Manager page, as this is where we started. And again, just calling your attention to these helpful resources I mentioned in the beginning. So over on the left-hand side, you'll see this training tab. And if you click into it, again, you'll see the live online training, the how-to guides, demo videos, recorded webinars, as well as our slide library. So like Sophie mentioned, we will be sending these slides out to you all if you haven't received them already. But if you're interested in any other webinars and the slides that we use for those, you can access them here. This live online training website will point out all of our upcoming webinars for the next few months and a few that I will plug for the rest of this week. I guess today's the last one for this week, but starting next week, we have a few exciting webinars to call your attention to. So the first one is actually on Monday. It is entitled Audits to Implementation, How Building Owners Leverage Energy Audits to Improve Portfolio Performance. Then we also have the second session in this series, Portfolio Manager 201. And then the following week, we will have Portfolio Manager 301. So if you're interested in any of those, I highly recommend registering through this page here. And I will, once I'm done stopping the screen share, I will send these links in the chat for you. And then another session to highlight is our Ask the Expert sessions. And these, as you'll see, are held pretty frequently every other Wednesday at noon. And these are essentially open office hours where folks from the EPA and GDIT will work with you on any issues you may be having in your portfolio manager account, whether it's getting set up with properties or working through existing properties if you've been working in the tool for a while. These folks are great, and you'll be able to work with them to solve any of those problems you might be having. So I highly recommend those sessions, especially for more specific property questions that we don't necessarily always have the time to answer in these bigger webinars. Alrighty, and with that, I guess I will stop the screen share here, and I'm going to move us right along through the slides. Sorry for the scrolling. And we'll get into the Q&A. I will pull these webinar registration links into the chat for you all. So if you'd like to register, please do. There we go. And we can get into the Q&A. So if you do have questions, please continue to send them in the chat, but we will get to the ones that are waiting for us. Okay, Sophie, I think we can stop the recording.